Okay, so I'll officially get started this morning by just welcoming all of you guys. Sawadee Kap, welcome to Wat Tung. Sawadee Kap, welcome to everyone. This is what we call our Pali Canon and English study group. On each Saturday, we get together and we study the original words of the Buddha. We start with meditation and then we move into studying the teachings of the Buddha. This is a program that people oftentimes move into after they've developed a foundation in the teachings of the Buddha. And the programs that we have that help a student to build a foundation are on Sunday and Wednesday. This is called the group learning program, where there's a book series here with 13 volumes. And on Sunday, what I do is I go through the first volume chapter by chapter each Sunday. This is a 7-month program that students learn and develop a foundation in the path to enlightenment using the teachings of the Buddha. And then on Wednesday, we usually do meditation together as well. And I open up to any and all questions that students have. We have various courses and retreats throughout the month and throughout the year where students can develop an understanding of the teachings of the Buddha and develop a really nice foundation. And then oftentimes students will come into a program like this after they've built kind of a framework of the teachings of the Buddha to help fill in the framework to be able to more fully understand the teachings of the Buddha. The group learning program on Sunday and Wednesday, it's a 7-month program where students can learn either here at the temple or learn online. Like right now, we're live streaming to the internet. So welcome to anyone on Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. And we teach this class on Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturday at 9 a.m. in the morning here at the temple. And then in the evening at 9 p.m., I teach it from home. So no matter where you are in the world, you should be able to attend if you'd like to learn the teachings of the Buddha and progress on the path to enlightenment. And then you're able to even ask any and all questions that you like as you're going through our various programs, courses, and retreats. So we start with a meditation to help you guys get started in developing your meditation practice. So I'll guide you guys in meditation, and then we'll move into the study group, as I mentioned. The teachings of the Buddha, it is to help you get to this enlightened mental state where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, boredom, loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy. Even the slightest displeasure is eliminated from the enlightened mind. By the time you train your mind to get to enlightenment, you won't even be in a bad mood anymore. You'll just always be in a good mood. You'll notice that there's focus, concentration, clarity of mind, deep memory. You'll notice your personal and professional relationships really blossom because you won't have this harshness and roughness anymore that you might have now in your relationships. The Buddha discovered 10 individual pollutions that are in the mind, and he explained what these are, and he gave you tools and techniques of how to eliminate these pollutions out of the mind so that then you can experience this peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state. His teachings aren't about a bunch of beliefs of things that you believe and then you hope something good happens when you die. Instead, you're learning teachings now. You're reflecting on those teachings to independently verify them, that they're true. And then you're practicing his teachings in order to transform the mind. Because you're learning now, reflecting now, and practicing now, you see the results now in this life. You can see that your mind's becoming more peaceful and more joyful. You can see your relationships improving. You can see the condition of your mind improving, like I mentioned, to the point where you're not even in a bad mood anymore. So as I share guidance and help you to learn things like meditation, you shouldn't believe anything that I say. Instead, you're learning, you're reflecting, and you're practicing to be able to see the truth for yourself. So I'll teach you guys a little bit about meditation as I guide you in meditation, but then it's up to you to independently reflect on that and then to actually practice it and see the truth for yourself that it actually works. So this meditation that I'm going to share with you guys, it's called breathing mindfulness meditation. I'll first give you guys some guidance on your body positioning, and then I'll actually give you the guidance during the meditation of how to actually do the meditation. So I see you guys are all sitting on the floor. We also have chairs if you guys would like chairs. There's actually 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking positions. These are the 4 positions that you can use because your body can't permanently be in the same position all the time. It's not possible for that to occur. And this practice isn't about everybody doing it exactly the same way. So with your body, you would like to find what's comfortable for you. Well, by sitting on the floor, Most people will tend to put a cushion under their rear or multiple cushions. This gets the hips up in the air and lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. Some people even like to put their legs off the mat, which accomplishes the same thing, which gets the hips up in the air and allows the circulation to flow in the lower body. The hands and the arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use this, but again, not everybody's going to find the same thing comfortable. It's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way. Some people might prefer to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people like to put their palms up. There's lots of different options of what you could do with your hands and arms. Essentially, you'd like your hands and arms to be completely relaxed. Not painful, but not luxurious either. Comfortable and in the middle. The upper body should be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be kind of dull and lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind would have a tendency to be overactive and uptight. So you'd like to keep the upper body erect because this allows the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation so you can actively train it during the meditation itself. I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting. These chants that I do, they're on a laminated sheet there on that table. You're welcome to get them if you like. The chants are in what's called the Pali language. This is the original language that the teachings of the Buddha are captured in, but there's also English translations on those as well, so you can see what we're actually chanting. The Buddha most likely didn't actually create these specific chants. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory, where every 2 weeks they would recite the Buddha's teachings word for word for word, and this allowed them to commit the teachings to memory because nothing was actually written down during his lifetime. These chants, as you see the English translations, there's a lot of admiration, a lot of respect, a lot of gratitude for the Buddha. So I suspect his students probably created these either during his life or after his death, because if you learn from a teacher who helped you go from anger, sadness, frustration, and all those other discontent feelings that I mentioned, and they helped you get to this peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy, and they had no expectation of you. They didn't want anything from you. They just did it out of the kindness of their heart. They didn't ask anything from you, want anything from you. They just helped you in order to get to this enlightened mental state where your mind's peaceful and joyful for the rest of your life. You'd probably have a lot of respect and admiration for that person too. So these chants, I imagine, were created by his students either during his life or after his death as a way to honor and respect him. So I chant these chants as a way to ease the mind into meditation. This isn't a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. There is no rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship in the teachings of the Buddha. Even if you've been around Buddhist things and people have been doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, that's not actually what the Buddha taught. He didn't teach to pray or anything like that. They used chanting during his lifetime as a way to commit the teachings to their memory so that they could then practice the teachings. So these chants, when I do these chants, and you're welcome to join along if you like, they're not a rite, a ritual, or ceremony, or even prayer or anything like that. It's just to help ease the mind into meditation, kind of helping to invigorate the mind, become more aware of the mind, and become aware of the breath, so that once you're in meditation, you're gaining more benefit out of the meditation itself. So I will go into meditation with some chanting. Then I'm going to provide some guidance to you while we're actually in the meditation. Then there's going to be a period of time where you're just meditating. I'm not going to be speaking. It'll be somewhat quiet. Of course, you'll hear an occasional car perhaps, or you might hear a dog bark or something like that. But all these things are impermanent. When you hear these various sounds, you're going to just bring the mind back to the breath. You'll hear how I guide you during the meditation. So after that period of time of quiet where we're all just meditating, those of us here and those of you guys joining us online, then afterwards we'll come out of meditation with some chanting as well to ease us out. And then from there, I'll start teaching you some teachings of the Buddha, and we'll move into the Pali Canon and English study group if you guys would like to study that. So if you'd like to join for meditation, make yourself comfortable. If you need more mats or more cushions, if you need anything at all, feel free to make yourself comfortable. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Om วันนังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะเขวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสักขะโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, with the lower body and the hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, establishing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then, when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะคะวะโอตังมะคะวันนังอภิวาเทมิสคาโตโรกาวิตุสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังโพโตภะคะวะติ If you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. So I'd like to once again welcome all of you guys that are here at the temple, including those of you guys that joined us since we started meditating. Welcome to all of you guys. Welcome to all of you guys that are joining us online. For those of you guys that are here at the temple, if this is your first time here, I'd like to just let you know that in the back of the room, there's a bathroom. If you'd like to use the restroom at any point, feel free to help yourself. It's the very last door on the right. There's even bathrooms outside. The main temple has bathrooms where you can go outside the classroom and you'll see the signs that'll guide you to the bathroom. And if you'd like some water or something like that, we have some water here that's provided by our students to help you guys. So you're welcome to help yourself to any water. As we go throughout the class, feel free to come and go as you please. Feel free to use the restroom as you please. It's really up to you. So what I thought I would share with you guys to help you guys get started here is just talk a little bit about this meditation that we just did. This is called breathing mindfulness meditation, and this is a primary form of training that the Buddha used in order to get to enlightenment. You wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. You need other things besides meditation. Meditation is a primary training that you use, but there's other teachings that you need besides meditation as well. So one of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is people think that he sat under a tree, he meditated, and he instantly got to enlightenment, but this isn't actually true. He gradually trained his mind to get to this enlightened mental state. He talks about it in his original teachings. He says that it wasn't instantaneous that he got to enlightenment, that it was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And you know that to be true because anything that you've ever done in life, whether it's learning how to speak English, reading, writing English, whether it's some job or occupation that you have. It's been gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that has led you to that point where you're now proficient in English or anything else that you might be doing in life. So this meditation of breathing mindfulness meditation, you're cultivating mindfulness or awareness of mind so that you can have more awareness of the mind, because this path to enlightenment is to purify the mind. And you're going to need that awareness of the mind in order to purify it. You're going to need to be able to see the unwholesome qualities that are in your mind, and you're going to need to be able to see the wholesome qualities that are in your mind, so that as you see the unwholesome qualities, you can cut those off, you can eliminate them and remove them from the mind. But then also the wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, you're going to need to support those, encourage them, bring them to full growth and perfection. So this mindfulness or awareness of mind helps you to be able to observe the mind and notice it in daily life. Because oftentimes in the unenlightened state, you might walk around the world just completely unaware of what's going on in your own mind. So you're going to need that awareness of mind. You're also cultivating concentration in this meditation by focusing on the breath. You're developing the mind and honing it to have concentration or clarity so that you can focus. And ultimately, this helps you to develop more memory in your mind as well. So these wholesome qualities of mindfulness and concentration are important for you in daily life so that you can now apply them in your daily life. But then also what you're doing is you're eliminating the unwholesome quality of craving, desire, attachment in the mind. These are the wants, the longing, the yearning. This is how the mind chases after the objects of its affection. This is what's actually causing your discontent feelings. All those discontent feelings I mentioned, like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, boredom, loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all of these discontent feelings and others are actually being caused by the mind itself. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, you might blame other people for the feelings that you experience. This is common, that an individual who lacks a certain amount of wisdom will blame other people for what they're experiencing in their mind. But in reality, your mind is causing these feelings itself, and that's why you can eliminate these feelings. You don't need to go around the world and convince other people to do things your way. All you need to do is train your own mind. Because in the unenlightened state, when you don't understand what's actually causing these discontent feelings, you will tend to push people away out of your life, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. But it doesn't solve the problem, because anybody that you've ever pushed out of your life, you still get angry, you still get bitter or harsh or resentful, or you have frustration or irritations. If the problem was those people that you pushed out of your life, you would no longer get angry or frustrated. Your mind would be peaceful and joyful. So you can see that it's not those people that are causing you to be angry. And then when the individual lacks wisdom about the cause of discontent feelings, which all unenlightened beings tend to have, then you will not only push people away out of your life, but you'll tend to be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people, because you falsely attribute the painful feelings that you're experiencing to other people, thinking that they're causing you to be angry or frustrated or any other discontent feeling. So you might be bitter and harsh and hostile to people. Or you might put your expectations on people, trying to control them and getting them to do the things that you want them to do. And neither of these things or any of these things are going to fix the problem in the unenlightened mind. If you keep pushing people away, you keep being bitter and harsh and hostile to people, and you keep putting your expectations on people, people will just move away out of your life. And the number of people you can spend time with will become fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer. Whereas if you train your mind through understanding what the real problem is and then applying a real solution, you'll be able to get liberated from these feelings. You'll be able to get freedom from these strong feelings to the point where your mind's always peaceful, always calm, always joyful. This is the enlightened mental state. So you do that through eliminating craving, desire, attachment. What craving, desire, attachment is how the mind's longing and yearning. It's chasing after the objects of its affection. So when you're in meditation and your mind is focused on the breath and it moves off the breath, you're training the mind to let that go and bring the mind back to the breath. You're not actually training your mind to eliminate your thoughts. Sometimes people think that's the case. So if during this meditation you experienced a bombardment of thoughts, this is completely normal for the unenlightened mind, that you might have a bombardment of thoughts. Or you might have had a thought and you followed it for a period of time. You kind of indulged in that thought. Maybe 2 or 3 minutes down the road, you're like, oh yeah, I'm meditating. I better bring my mind back to the breath. So if you experienced either of these two things, you're not bad at meditation. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just that your mind is untrained. It's undisciplined. It's uncontrolled. So you might have had a bombardment of thoughts, or you might have indulged in a thought for a period of time. But over the course of training your mind in meditation over multiple months and years, you get to the point where you'll notice the thought right away, and you'll be able to easily let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. So even an enlightened being will have an occasional thought in meditation. But the difference is that there's a quieting of the mind in the enlightened mind. There's a stilling of the mind. So rather than thought, which tends to happen in the unenlightened mind, or indulging in a thought for a period of time, an enlightened being will have a thought. They will notice it and they'll cut it off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. So now with this development of the mind, these exercising of the mind, gaining discipline and control in meditation, where you have more mindfulness and concentration, and you have the ability to easily let things go. In daily life, where you're noticing the frustration arising, where you're noticing the anger or the hostility or any other kind of unwholesome qualities arising in the mind, you can then cut that off and let it go. If you've been training your mind this way in meditation regularly, you'll be able to cut off and let go of these unwholesome qualities that are arising. And then over time, as you do this consistently, both in meditation and outside of meditation, you'll ultimately get to the point where you've purified the mind, where the mind can be peaceful and joyful all the time. You won't even notice any arising of anger, because the causes and conditions that are causing these discontent feelings to arise will have been eliminated from the mind. The pollutions that the Buddha discovered, these 10 individual pollutions, can be eradicated and eliminated from the mind such that you've purified your mind, and then the mind will no longer experience discontent feelings, not even the slightest annoyment. By the time you get to enlightenment, you don't even have dislike towards another individual, where right now there's probably certain people you like in the world and there's certain people that you dislike. By the time you get to enlightenment, you don't even have that dislike towards others. You can have love and kindness and compassion for all beings around you. And it just needs training. You need to understand the wisdom of how to actually train the mind. So that's why with the teachings of the Buddha, you're not believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. Instead, you're cultivating wisdom. You're learning now, you're examining his teachings now, you're investigating his teachings. Then you're reflecting on those to independently verify them. And then you're practicing them in order to uproot these pollutions out of the mind so that you can see more peace and more joy, more concentration and focus. Your personal, professional relationships can really blossom to the point where I mentioned that you're not even in a bad mood by the time you get to enlightenment. You're always in a good mood because you've uprooted the causes and conditions that are producing the bad mood. And that just needs a person to decide that they're done with the anger. They're done with the sadness. You're tired of feeling the grief and misery and despair that you might have experienced at different times in your life. You're done being hostile and bitter. You're interested in doing something different in your life and producing an improved way of life. And that's what the Buddha taught. He didn't teach a bunch of rules or commandments. He didn't try to convince you to do anything. He wasn't guilting or shaming or fearing you into doing anything. He already experienced this peaceful and joyful mental state for himself. And then he spent the remaining 45 years of his life from the age of 35 to 80 sharing with students how he actually did it. And then for those people that were interested in learning and practicing to be able to get to that enlightened mental state, he shared it with them and helped them to be able to experience that same mental state that he attained. And then over the course of his 45 years teaching, there was countless people who got to enlightenment and experienced this mental quality for themselves. And that's how they know that these teachings indeed work. And that's why they've been preserved for 2,500 years, because they actually do work. So if you're interested in learning and understanding those teachings, that's why someone might decide to come to the temple, meet with a teacher, read books, choose to meditate, because they're interested in training their mind to get to that enlightened mental state where you can experience peace and joy for the rest of this life. So today's class is what we call the Pali Canon and English Study Group, and we're actually starting a new book today. This is volume 11 out of this 13-book series, and this book is actually titled The Realms of Existence. This is where you start learning the cycle of rebirth, and it's usually something that a student approaches after about a year and a half, 2 years into their development on the path to enlightenment. But based on the people that are here, I know that most of you guys are fairly new. I haven't seen you guys before. I haven't met you before. Some of the people I see that have been here before. I'm not sure that this is the best topic for us to study today. If you guys are interested in studying that, I'll surely share it with you. But if there's something else that you would rather study, which my thought is that the very first step on the path to enlightenment is to learn what's called the 3 universal truths and the 4 noble truths. This is where you can have like a real breakthrough to understanding what's causing your discontent feelings, so that then you can actually learn how to eliminate them. If you're like brand new to the path to enlightenment, this would be the very first teaching that the Buddha would have shared with you during his lifetime. And if you guys are interested, I can either share with you what I had planned, which is the realms of existence, studying chapters 1 through 10 of this book, or if you guys are interested, we can switch gears and I can share with you guys the very first teaching to help you guys have this breakthrough, to be able to understand why your mind is experiencing these discontent feelings, and then also providing you the solutions to help you understand how to actually solve them. The realms of existence are something that you can independently verify, but it's usually not something you approach when you first get started with the path to enlightenment. So that's why I'm thinking this may not be the very best topic for us to be discussing today. So is there anybody here that actually came specifically to learn about the realms of existence? Is there anybody? You came to learn about that? You knew about that? Okay. A little bit. Okay. So kind of 1.5 maybe, right? All right. So I'm going to be teaching this class that I was going to be teaching right now. I'm going to be teaching it tonight at 9 p.m. online from my home, and I live stream it to Facebook, YouTube, and you can join by Zoom as well. And it's also recorded that you can watch it any time if you can't attend tonight at 9 p.m. So if you guys are interested, I'll share with you guys, I'll switch gears here and I'll share with you guys the very first teaching of the Buddha. Is that something you guys are interested in? Can I see a show of hands? How many of you guys are interested in that? Okay, so the majority of you guys. Okay, so let me do a couple changes here with the visual aids and what I've got going on the live stream, and then we'll share this teaching with you guys. Okay, I'm going to just back this up. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to share with you guys is what's called the 3 universal truths and the 4 noble truths. Whenever students first start studying with me, I like to spend about 10 minutes just to kind of help you get oriented to understanding how it would be wise to progress on the path to enlightenment. When a teacher is sharing teachings with you, you should never believe anything that the teacher shares. You should never believe what I say. You should never believe what is written in books. You should never believe anything that I teach you. Don't believe what I'm sharing with you. Instead, learn what I'm sharing with you and then reflect on it to independently verify it and then start practicing it to be able to see the truth for yourself, that what I'm sharing with you is the truth. Because belief isn't going to lead you to enlightenment. You need to get to wisdom. By getting to wisdom, you can actually see the truth, and then you'll be able to then practice what is being shared with you to be able to actually transform the mind. You can't believe your way to enlightenment. You're going to need to learn, which includes investigating and examining the teachings. You're going to need to reflect on them to independently verify them, and then you're going to need to practice them. This is how you get to wisdom, and you'll know the truth for yourself. And as I teach you today, I'm going to help you to be able to do that. I'm going to help you to learn. I'm going to show you how to learn. I'm going to show you how to reflect, and then I'm going to show you how to practice what I'm sharing with you so that then you can actually get the real results of the teachings of the Buddha. When we talk about awakening the mind to enlightenment, this is what you're awakening to. You're awakening to wisdom. By awakening to wisdom, gaining wisdom through your own independent verification in your practice, that's where you're going to see the real transformation of the mind. With belief, you don't know what's true or false. So if you just believe what somebody shares with you, you don't know whether it's true or false or not because you haven't seen the truth for yourself. So what you're interested in doing is getting to wisdom, and that's through learning, reflecting, and practicing. You've accomplished the same thing throughout your life in a different context that you may not actually be aware that you did. As you go through life, you either make wise decisions that produce wholesome results, we call this wholesome karma, or you make unwise decisions that produces unwholesome results, or unwholesome karma. Unwholesome karma or wholesome karma, it's the results of your decisions. Karma or karma, it's not mystical or magical. It's not something that is a black cloud that's following you around. It's not punishments and rewards. It's not about who's at fault or who's right or wrong. What karma is, or karma, it's the results of your decisions. There's this cause and effect, or this action and result. This is what you're essentially awakening to on the path to enlightenment, is this natural law, to be able to see the truth for yourself, that there are certain wise decisions that you can make that is going to produce wholesome results, and there are certain unwise decisions that you make that produce unwholesome results. And when you lack wisdom, because the unenlightened mind is going to have a certain amount of lack of wisdom, you will naturally make unwise decisions that produce unwholesome results. And what we tend to do in those situations when we're experiencing unwholesome results in the unenlightened state is we will tend to blame other people for the unwholesome results that we experience, when in reality it's our own decisions that are causing anything that we experience in our life. So by learning, reflecting, and practicing, you can get to wisdom, and you can make wiser and wiser decisions in your life that will produce wholesome results. Because when you don't understand the world around you, you will struggle and you will have difficulties making certain decisions. We experienced the same thing as we were growing up. We lacked wisdom of a certain natural law. There's the natural law of gravity, that every single one of us lacked the wisdom of this natural law when we were first born, and we struggled. We had this unknowing of true reality. We had this lack of wisdom. We made unwise decisions related to this natural law, and we experienced unwholesome results. We fell down. We bumped our head. We busted our elbow. We busted our knees. We fell off our bicycle and had broken toys and things like this. And we really struggled, and we were discontent and sad and upset because of our lack of wisdom of this natural law of gravity. But slowly but surely, we gained wisdom about this natural law of gravity, that by the time we were 10 or 12, we were fully awake to the natural law of gravity. We gained wisdom, which then led us to making wiser decisions that produced wholesome results. We started tying our shoes really tight. We started looking at the surface of the sidewalk in the street when we walked. We started slowing down instead of being so giddy and so bouncy all the time and jumping all around. And as we made these wiser and wiser decisions, because we were more fully awake to this natural law of gravity, we started experiencing different results. We started experiencing wholesome results. We didn't fall down. We don't hit our head. We don't bust our elbow. We don't break things as often because we now understand the natural law of gravity. If we have something that's particularly important, like maybe a glass of water, instead of putting it right here on the front of the chair where I can easily knock it over, you start making wiser decisions to maybe put that behind you where it doesn't actually get hit and fall over. So we start making wiser decisions and we start experiencing better results in our life because we gain this wisdom of the natural law of gravity. We can see the truth for ourselves that yes, there it is. It actually exists. It's a real natural law. Well, the same thing needs to occur with the natural law of existence. These natural laws of existence that the Buddha taught, he's sharing with you this natural world. He's explaining to you what's going on in the world around you so that then you can learn, you can reflect, and you can practice. You can independently verify these natural laws that he's teaching you. So that's why you're not interested in believing anything. Because if you just believed in the natural law of gravity, you wouldn't know whether it's true or false. But by you knowing the wisdom of this natural law, now you're at the point that you can ride a bicycle, you might be able to ride a motorbike, you can climb a ladder, you can get on airplanes, you can do all these things because you now have wisdom about this natural law of gravity. So the mind needs to do the same thing related to the natural laws of existence that the Buddha taught, that you can awaken to the wisdom of these natural laws. So I'm going to share with you guys 2 teachings of the Buddha that are the very first teachings that you would learn as you get started on the path to enlightenment. It's called the 3 universal truths and the 4 noble truths. We call them truths because the Buddha knows that they're true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true as well. But in order for you to benefit from them, you're going to need to know that they're true. This is your journey to enlightenment. A teacher is just here as a guide. We're just pointing out to you what it's going to take for you to make your way to enlightenment. And then because of your own independent journey, you're going to need to move to the edge of your cushion, to the edge of your chair, in order to decide that, yes, I would like to investigate this and be able to reflect on this and practice it to be able to see the truth for myself, whether these teachings are actually true or not. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But just always remember that this is your journey to enlightenment. A teacher is not here to convince you of anything. We're not here to push you or pressure you to do anything or force you to do anything. We're here to share teachings with you that you need to know if you're interested in eliminating these discontent feelings and getting to this peace and joy, eliminating the anger and the sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings. So as we go today, you guys are welcome to ask any and all questions. You're going to see that I'm going to pause at different times, allowing you guys to ask questions. And for those of you guys here at the temple, if you wouldn't mind using the microphones in that white bowl to ask questions, there's a little button there you can press to turn on the microphone. That way the people online will be able to hear you. And for those of you guys that are online on Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can ask your question by putting it into the comment section. I'll be able to see that. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions or follow-up questions directly. So now this first teaching of the 3 universal truths. Again, we call them truths because we know that they're true, but you need to know they're true through your own independent investigation of these teachings. So this first universal truth is called the universal truth of impermanence. This is where the Buddha is explaining to you that all the things around you are impermanent. These are what's called conditioned objects. Conditioned object, it arises, it changes, and it fades away. This is called impermanence. That things are not permanent. So for example, this carpet is not permanent. It arose, it changes, and it fades away. At one time, it wasn't a carpet. People had to put it together and turn it into a carpet. And now it changes. It gets stains. It's, fabrics are starting to fall off of it. And eventually, it won't be a carpet anymore. It's impermanent. So now that you're understanding just a little bit about this universal truth of impermanence, I've helped you to learn it, that it means that there's constant change in the world. When you look around the world around you, things are not permanent. Okay, so this is the learning part. But now you start reflecting on it because you're not believing me. You're not believing what's on the slides. You're not believing what's in the books. You're looking to independently reflect on this to see, is it true? So the way that you try to see if it's true and reflect on it is you try to disprove it. If you can find something that is permanent in your life, then you've disproven this, and it's not a universal truth. So I suggest that you start with something that you're familiar with, which is this human body. You ask yourself, is this body permanent or is it impermanent? If this body is permanent, that means it's been exactly the same your whole life and it's never changed. If it's impermanent, that means this physical body is constantly changing. So what would you say? Is this body permanent or impermanent? This gentleman says impermanent. What would you guys say? The body's impermanent. You guys agree with that? Right? So our shape is changing. The color and texture of our skin's changing. The hair is constantly changing. We get teeth and then they fall out and then they grow back in and then we get cavities. We get a little bit of fat here and there, right? Our hair turns gray. We start losing our hair at different times, right? We get a mole, we get a freckle, we get a pimple. These things are all constantly changing, right? The physical body's constantly changing. What would you say about your relationships? Are they permanent or impermanent? If your relationships are permanent, you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life. Or if your relationships are impermanent, you've had people coming and going in and out of your life at different times. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? People have been coming and going in and out of your life at different times. What about your bank account? Is this permanent or impermanent? What would you say? Is your bank account permanent, meaning it's the same balance all the time, or does it fluctuate? Is it permanent or impermanent? No, it's impermanent, right? Some of us, our bank account goes down, 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 right? Some of us, it goes up, 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 up. Sometimes it goes up and then down and then up and down. This is impermanence. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? Is the weather always the same or does it change, meaning impermanent? What would you guys say? It's impermanent, right? Sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's raining, sometimes, depending on where you live, it might be snowing, there might be a hurricane or a tornado. These things are all constantly changing. You can go around the world and you can continue to do this if you like. When you're walking down the sidewalk and you see a crack in the sidewalk, this is impermanence. When the height of the sidewalk is changing, that's impermanence. When the texture and the color of the sidewalk is changing, this is impermanence. When you look at the wall of the temple and you see the holes and you see the marks, this is all impermanence, right? If the floor has marks on it, that's all impermanence, right? So everything around you is impermanent, and you can see this for yourself. When you're meditating and it's a little bit quiet, but then there's a sound, that's impermanence. The sounds are impermanent, right? They arise, they change, and they fade away. That's what impermanence is, that things are constantly changing. So this is an important teaching to understand in order to understand the Four Noble Truths, what I'm going to teach you next. But these are building blocks that I'm sharing with you now to help you understand the Four Noble Truths, which is where you're going to understand the problem, the cause of the problem, the elimination, and the path forward. So let's help you to further understand these so that then you can understand the Four Noble Truths and have this breakthrough to understanding what's causing your discontent feelings. So the second universal truth is called discontentedness. If you've studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might have heard people refer to this as suffering. I don't use this word suffering. In the original teachings of the Buddha, the word dukkha is used. This is the Pali word. The original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language. And then we've translated them into English. And some people use the word suffering here. But I don't use this word suffering, and I'll explain to you why. But let me explain to you what this universal truth is first. I use the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. These are conditioned feelings where the Buddha describes that the unenlightened mind experiences pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. The pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. You know what pleasant feelings are. You've experienced them before. Then there's painful feelings. Things like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful for you to experience. And then there's neither painful nor pleasant. I put boredom and loneliness in here, but some people say that's quite painful for them. So you could consider that a painful feeling if you like. But something like shyness is probably a good example. It's not pleasant and it's not painful. It's neither painful nor pleasant. Or if you were on public transportation and somebody you don't know came and sat next to you and your body was touching their body, you'd probably say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. The mind's kind of dissatisfied. It's kind of uncomfortable in that situation. That's what this third one is, neither painful nor pleasant. So these are the three feelings that the unenlightened mind is experiencing. There's pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. And these are called conditioned feelings. What a conditioned feeling is that these feelings are based on some condition. So for example, in the unenlightened state, you might wake up in the morning, you see it's sunny outside, and you're like, oh yes, it's sunny outside. Oh, I'm so excited. We get to go outside. We're going to go hiking. We're going to go play at the swimming pool. We're going to go to the beach or whatever it is, right? You get so excited. You're going to go out with your friends today. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so excited. This is a conditioned feeling because you formed your inner feelings on some condition. The condition is that it's sunny outside. So now you're going to be happy. But the challenge is that now you go take a shower and you come out and you see it's raining and now you're sad and now you're frustrated and irritated because you based your inner feelings on some condition, meaning the sun, and the sun is impermanent, meaning it's going to change. That means your feeling of happiness is going to change. Because you allowed your mind to get the conditioned feeling of happiness, now, because you are happy and excited, when that condition changes, the mind's going to move to the painful feelings. This is called a conditioned feeling. This is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. It's going up and down and up and down. At different points, you might have a bit of peacefulness or calmness here and there, but it's only a matter of time before you get agitated or annoyed about something. So this is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing, is conditioned feelings of going up and down and up and down. The mind is discontent or discontented or experiencing discontentedness. The enlightened mind is beyond this. The enlightened mind doesn't go up and down and up and down. It doesn't form its inner feelings on some condition like the sun. In the enlightened state, you wake up, you're already joyful before you ever saw that it was sunny outside. You're already peaceful. You're already joyful. You see it's sunny outside. Sweet. I'm going to go outside and go hiking with my friends, or we're going to go to the beach. This is going to be a blast. Yeah, let's go have some fun. Okay, you go take a shower. You come back. You see it's raining outside. Okay, well, it's raining outside. Guess we can't go to the beach. Guess we can't go hiking. So you know what? Why don't we go to the mall? Why don't we go have some food at a restaurant? Why don't we go to the movies? Maybe I'll stay home and read a book. You'll do something else and you'll maintain your peace and you'll maintain your joy. But in the unenlightened state, because you formed your inner feelings based on the sun, now you're going to be frustrated when the sun is no longer there, or agitated or annoyed. But in the enlightened mind, you are already joyful. You have what's called unconditioned happiness. In the unenlightened mind, you have conditional feelings, conditional happiness, meaning if this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens, then I will be happy. If my bank account is this, if my mom does this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if my life partner or my children do this, then I will be happy. But if they don't do those things, then I will be sad and frustrated and irritated. That's what the unenlightened mind is doing. But in the enlightened mind, you have unconditioned happiness or unconditioned joy, where the mind is just always joyful. It's always happy. It's not based on any condition. So because you have unconditioned happiness, it's permanent. Even though all conditioned objects are impermanent, there is enlightenment, which is an unconditioned object. It's not based on any condition. So it doesn't arise, it doesn't change, and it doesn't fade away. But all conditioned objects are going to arise, they're going to change, and they're going to fade away. So that's why those conditioned feelings of happiness will arise, change, and fade away. This is why you haven't been able to experience permanent happiness in your life, because you might have been basing your happiness on your bank account or your relationships or your job or what your boss was doing or what your parents or your siblings are doing. If you base your inner feelings on some condition, as soon as those conditions change, your feelings will change too. So you're going to end up in those painful feelings. So some people refer to this as suffering. I think suffering explains the painful feelings really well. When you're sad or frustrated or feeling guilt or shame or stress or anxiety, you'd probably say you're feeling like you're suffering. But when you're having conditioned happiness or excitement, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering. Or if that person you don't know came and sat next to you in a public transportation, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering if your body was touching their body. You'd probably say, I feel uncomfortable, right? Or my mind's discontent. You're discontented or experiencing discontentedness, but you're not suffering when that person sits next to you and your body's touching their body. So that's why I don't use the word suffering, because it only explains 33% of what the Buddha was teaching, which means you're missing 66% of his teachings on this important topic. And if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, you're not going to be able to get to the ultimate goal, which is enlightenment. So by understanding that this is discontented, or discontentedness, you have a fuller understanding of what the Buddha was really describing here, is these conditioned feelings of pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. Then there's, this is how you independently verify this, right? Because I just taught it to you. I helped you learn it. Here's how you independently verify this second universal truth. You know that your mind is unenlightened right now. This is what you experience. Do you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant? Is there any feeling that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories? If there's a feeling that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories, then this isn't a universal truth. Because the universal truth is that it's universally true amongst all beings. So you should be able to see that this is universally true and that all the feelings that you've ever experienced fit into one of these three categories. Then there's this third universal truth. It's called non-self. This is actually the solution to one of the pollutions that are in the mind. There's 10 individual pollutions. We call them the 10 fetters. And what a fetter is like a shackle around your ankle with a chain and a ball. In the old days, they would keep prisoners this way. They actually still do it in Thailand. If you go to prison, the first 3 months that you're there, you're going to have to carry around this ball with a shackle around your ankle. And it kind of keeps you in a certain area. It keeps you trapped, right? So these 10 fetters, or these 10 pollutions, or 10 taints or defilements, is keeping the mind trapped in this unenlightened state. So one of the pollutions is called personal existence view. This universal truth of non-self is explaining the solution to that. But let me explain to you this pollution of personal existence view first so that you can understand it. And through your own direct experience, you'll be able to confirm that what I'm sharing with you is true and that your mind has this pollution. This personal existence view is where the mind thinks that this body or this mind is you. That there's a certain self-image that your mind is clinging to. And when you're perceived in the world in the way that you want to be perceived, you will feel happy or excited or joyful. But then when you're perceived in a way that you don't want to be perceived, something that's disagreeable to you, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. And the same thing is happening with the identity in the mind. There's a certain identity that the mind is clinging to. So let me give you some examples. So if you ever spilt some spaghetti sauce or chocolate ice cream on your clothes and you felt embarrassed, that's because your mind is clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are, and now you're not being perceived in the world the way you want to be perceived, and now you feel embarrassed or you feel shy because you've spilt something on these clothes and you think that these clothes or this body is you. And now that self-image that the mind is clinging to, you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived in the world, and now you feel embarrassed. Or if you've ever experienced having a gray hair or a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple, or you got a little extra fat and you were all shaken up by that, this is because of your personal existence view. The mind is clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are. And therefore, when you experience a situation where you don't like that, you don't want that to occur, your mind clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are, your mind gets shaken up. Or if you've ever had somebody say something agreeable to you, maybe they say, "Oh, you're so beautiful," or "Oh, you're so handsome," or "Oh, those clothes really bring out the colors of your eyes. You're so beautiful, you're so handsome." You might have gotten pleasant feelings based on the condition that somebody is complimenting you and you've heard something agreeable. And now you get all these pleasant feelings like, "Oh, your hair looks really beautiful today," or "Oh, you look so handsome today," right? You get all these conditioned pleasant feelings. Well, it was only a matter of time before somebody said something degrading and disparaging about this self-image. And now when somebody says something degrading and disparaging about how this self-image appears, you've experienced frustration or anger or sadness. right? So this is the mind clinging to this body, this self-image, thinking that this is who you are. And now when you experience that, this personal existence view doesn't like the disagreeable contact. If you get agreeable contact, hearing agreeable things about your self-image, you'll get pleasant feelings. But when you hear disagreeable contact about the self-image, you'll get these painful feelings, and you'll get that embarrassment or those other feelings that we're talking about. And then there's a certain self-image in the mind, that the mind's clinging to a certain identity. There's a certain identity that your mind might be holding. Maybe I am British, right? Or I am Chinese, or I am Indian, or I am Swedish, right? Or I am an Aussie, right? Or I am American. You might have a certain self-identity based on your culture, your ethnicity, your nationality, your sexual orientation, maybe your job or occupation. You're identifying with this is who you are as a person. Maybe as a role, maybe I am a husband, I am a wife, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend. And now when you adopt this identity in your mind of this is who you are as a person, when things start to change, your mind can be shaken up by that. So if you've ever been in a relationship and then when you guys split, you really struggled and you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship because you identified with, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I am a wife. And now when you no longer were that, because you were now single, your mind might have really struggled and wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. Or if you ever had a job or occupation, and in that job or occupation, you identified with that's who you are as a person. When you left that job or you got fired or laid off or you're retired or something like that, you might have really struggled during that time when you got laid off or when you retired because you identified with that as who you are. Or say you're at a restaurant and you're hearing somebody talk 2 tables over and they're saying, all British people are so fun and friendly and lovely, or all Indian people are so friendly and loving, or all Australian people, Swedish people, Chinese people, oh, they're so fun, they're so lovely. Oh, I just enjoy being around Japanese people so much, right? You might get all those pleasant feelings. But then 4 tables over, you hear somebody talking in a degrading and disparaging way about the country that you come from. And if you identify with that's who you are as a person, now when somebody's degrading the nationality, the identity that you've adopted in your mind, thinking that that's who you are, now you'll get frustrated. Now you'll get irritated or annoyed because your mind is clinging to this identity, thinking that this is who you are. So what the Buddha is teaching you with the universal truth of non-self is he's saying there is no self. There is no you. That this body is not you. This mind is not you. There is a body, there is a mind, and these have come together, and we call this a person or a human being. But this isn't who you are. But as long as your mind is clinging to this body or clinging to this mind, thinking that this is who you are, when you have agreeable contact, either about the self-image or the self-identity, you will get pleasant feelings. But then when you have disagreeable contact about this self-image or this self-identity, you will get painful feelings. So you can eradicate all of that from the mind by realizing non-self, by realizing that this body nor this mind is you. So this is a teaching that oftentimes takes people time to really sit with it and revisit it multiple times before they fully understand it, because all throughout your life, people have been trying to convince you that this body or this mind is you. And that's what we've been taught our entire life. In fact, the country that we come from most likely is really wanting us to identify with that's who we are as a person. That's why we have national anthems, we have flags, we have Olympic Games that we cheer for the people from our country, maybe, right? And we have Pledge of Allegiance, at least in America. I don't know about other countries, right? They want you to adopt this thinking of, I am an American, right? Because then you invest in the country, you invest in real estate, all these kinds of things. So as long as your mind is clinging to this body or this mind is thinking that this is who you are, then you will struggle. You will have difficulties when you hear agreeable or disagreeable things. So while I know that this body was born in America, I am not American. My mind doesn't identify with that, right? This body was born there, but I am not American. Or I'm performing the role of a Buddhist teacher, but I am not a Buddhist teacher. If my mind identifies with I am a Buddhist teacher, when people say agreeable things about Buddhist teachers, I would get conditioned pleasant feelings. But then when people say degrading and disparaging things about Buddhist teachers, I would feel sad and frustrated. But by training your mind to no longer identify with these things as who you are, then your mind can be free and liberated. So this is a little bit about this universal truth of non-self, where the Buddha is saying this body nor this mind is you. It's not who you are. But here's how you independently verify it now, because I just gave you a bit of learning so that you could understand it. Now this is how you independently reflect on it to verify that it's true, that there is no self. Think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and then now. The way that you have viewed yourself, has it been exactly the same throughout all those stages of your life, or has it been constantly changing the way that you see yourself? That's all it's constantly changing, right? So you can see with that simple verification that there is no permanent self, because the image of yourself and who you think you are as a person has been constantly changing. Here's another way. If you had your arm cut off and you only had one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? You're saying no? Are you less of a person if you only have one hand or one arm? No? Okay, so intellectually, you know that this body isn't you. Because if I just shared that with you, if you had your arm cut off and you only had one hand and one arm, and I said, are you less of a person? You say, yes, I'm less of a person. But intellectually, you understand that this body isn't you, or else you would have said that. So the mind can intellectually know that this body isn't you. But the mind can then be confused when it comes to hearing things about this body. And now the mind struggles in these situations. The mind has this misunderstanding or this confusion, this lack of wisdom, where intellectually you can understand that this body isn't you, but in the moment when you hear somebody say something degrading or disparaging about this body, then you get angry or frustrated or irritated. Here's another way you can confirm this universal truth of non-self is true. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point? Go ahead. Yeah, most people will point here, right? Or somebody might point here. Okay, so let's look at what we're pointing to if somebody points here. What are you pointing to? What is this? Somebody says heart. Literally, what are you pointing to? You're pointing to a shirt. That's what you're pointing to. You're pointing to a shirt. Is this shirt you? Let's take off the shirt, not literally, but let's take off the shirt, hold it up, and point to it. Is that you? Is that who you are? Are you that shirt you're wearing? Is that you? Yes or no? No? That shirt's not you, right? Okay, so let's throw away the shirt. So where are you? Someone might point again. Okay, what are you pointing to? If there's no shirt and you point, what are you pointing to? Some skin, yes. So we take off the skin and we hold up the skin. Is that you? Is that who you are? Are you the skin? No? Someone's shaking their head, no? No? You're not the skin either, right? So let's throw that away. Okay, where are you? Someone might point again. What are you pointing to? Bones, muscle tissue, organs, fluid. Is any of that stuff you? Is that who you are as a person? No, that's not who you are. Those are just little bits and pieces and parts. None of this is you. But the mind in the unenlightened state will be confused and it thinks that this is you. So that's why the Buddha teaches you that there is no self. There is no you there. But the mind will be confused and think that this body or this mind is you. So over time, as you visit this topic, and then there's various tools and techniques that he teaches you, that you can do what's called realizing non-self. where the mind realizes that this is not you, that there is no self. Because right now you maybe intellectually understand this to a certain degree, but when you go outside and you hear somebody say something negative and degrading about this self-image, you'll get angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed perhaps. Or if you hear somebody say something disparaging about your nationality, you might get angry or frustrated. So it's one thing to understand it intellectually, and then to actually be reflecting on it and see the truth. But it's a whole other thing to be able to practice in the moment when you hear somebody say something degrading and disparaging, because you can't control what other people say and what other people do. All you can do is control your own mind if you've trained your mind, right? So these are the three universal truths. These are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths, which I'm going to teach you next. But before we move on, I'd like to pause and see if you guys have any questions on these three universal truths. Do you guys have any questions on these? You can use the mics here, or those of you guys online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, and I'll be able to see your question. Yeah, would you mind turning that on? Yeah, you just click the button and it'll show a light. There it is. I hear it.
Really interesting, and as you say, very reflective. If there is no self, what becomes enlightened? If it's not your mind or your body, what is it that becomes enlightened if there is no self? That's what I'm just trying to...
Sure. So it's the mind that attains enlightenment, but that mind is not you. So the mind, so essentially what we've got going on right here is there's a mind or a consciousness that is now with this human body. In this human body, the mind is using it in order to move the tongue and move the mouth and the lips and produce some kind of sound. And now that sound is going into those ears, and that those ears are the physical body, that now the mind is taking in the content of what I'm sharing, right? So it's really just two consciousness or two minds interacting with each other through the physical body. So it's the mind that becomes enlightened, but that mind is not you, nor the body. That's not you either. So it's the mind that's becoming enlightened, but that mind is not you. Mm-hmm. This teaching takes usually more time for people to really soak in. Where like impermanence and discontentedness, people usually get that right off the bat. But this third one usually takes a bit more time. You have a question, Rasmus? Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, so...
The batteries die out. Some impermanence already, right? There you go. See? Even the microphones are impermanent. How did the Buddha know that 2,500 years ago? All these things are impermanent. Even a microphone is impermanent, right? There's some more batteries there. If you guys would like to change them, you're welcome to.
Yeah, okay. So on impermanence then. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that the impermanence is the only universal truth then. It seems like the discontentedness and non-self is just sort of spelling it out a little bit.
They are all in universal truths. Each one is independently a universal truth.
Are they?
Yeah.
It seems like they are subcategories of impermanence.
Impermanence is the first one because it helps you to understand discontentedness and it helps you to understand the universal truth of non-self, but they are individually different. Okay. They're teaching something different in each one.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. But you're going to see these teachings are often interconnected.
Yeah.
Helping you to understand the totality of these natural laws that the Buddha describes.
All right.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yep. You can... Oops. You okay?
Yeah, like my question is, are the three universal rules impermanent or permanent?
So enlightenment itself is permanent once you attain it, and the natural laws of existence are permanent. So there's what's called conditioned objects and there's unconditioned objects. Everything around you, all these material objects, these are conditioned objects. They arise, they change, and they fade away. So that's why I invite you to look around the world around you and see that everything around you is impermanent. But enlightenment, once you attain it, it's a permanent mental state because it's an unconditioned mind. The mind is now unconditioned. The conditions that were in the mind that were causing it to be unenlightened have been removed. And by the time you get to enlightenment, you now have an unconditioned mind where it's now pure. It's been purified. In the natural laws of existence themselves, what the Buddha taught are permanent. This is why his teachings from 2,500 years ago are just as applicable today as they were 2,500 years ago. So one of the jokes that we have in Buddhism is, what is permanent? Well, impermanence is permanent, right? So all these natural laws that the Buddha taught, they are permanent. Now, people's memories of those teachings, the books that they were written down in, and all these things, these are conditioned objects. They have changed. So people have, modified his teachings, adjusted his teachings, and so forth and so on. But that's why you don't believe what you write, what you see written down. Even the books that I share with the original words of the Buddha, I know that these are the true teachings of the Buddha. I've independently verified them and see the results for myself. So you're not interested in believing anything that you hear somebody teaching or you see in a book because of impermanence. 2,500 years, people could have been changing things, which some people did. But there's other people who are very interested in getting back to the original teachings of what the Buddha actually taught. And the way that you do that is by independently verifying them and practicing them to be able to see the truth. And what you'll see is what he actually taught is just as applicable today as it was 2,500 years ago, because these natural laws don't change. They're the same natural laws that existed during his lifetime.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I do have another question about no self. Like in Buddhism, encourage people to making merit. So who is the making merit? Is the mind side or the body?
What's making merit? Okay. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Like in Buddhism, encourage people to make merit. So who is the making merit? Is the body or the mind side?
Okay, so it's the mind. So for those of you guys that aren't familiar with merit, what merit is a practice of generosity, that when you're practicing generosity for the continuation of the teachings of the Buddha, you're giving and sharing. And this is helping the mind to eliminate something I'm about to teach you about, which is craving, desire, attachment. And this is what we call merit. So the mind needs to be able to eliminate its craving, desires, attachments. And that's what generosity is helping you to do in producing merit. So there's nothing mystical or magical about producing merit. Some people think that there's something mystical or magical, and some people think you can transfer merit to another person, which isn't actually true. You can't do that. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question. You said that you are not your body, not your mind. I think the soul doesn't exist in the Buddhism. So who are you?
Okay.
My question.
So you're right that the Buddha didn't teach whether there is a soul or there isn't a soul. He left as an undeclared teaching. So in his teachings, he teaches for 45 years, and his teachings are in 45 volumes of books that are about this thick, right? Really, really thick. So he teaches all these teachings, but there's actually teachings where he says, remember what I taught. I taught this, and remember what I did not teach. I did not teach these things. So he says that whether there is a soul or there isn't a soul, he's leaving that as an undeclared teaching because it conflicts with the universal truth of impermanence. So he didn't teach whether there is a soul or there isn't a soul. But then the question becomes, well, if I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, then what am I? Right? So this is the mind still grasping and trying to find a thing. What am I? I want to be something. And the Buddha is saying there is no you. So you need to get to the point where the mind realizes that this body isn't you. This mind isn't you. You're nothing. right? That oftentimes we're taught to be a somebody. We're taught to go out into the world and change the world and be a somebody, right? And people think that this is helping them to build confidence. But what it's really doing is it's building arrogance. It's building ego. It's building boastfulness in the mind. So it's helpful to train the mind to be a nobody, but still maintain your confidence and still maintain the ability to go out into the world and do wonderful things, whatever that is that you would like to do. But if you look at like an ant colony, say there's 500,000 ants or 1 million ants. Do you think any of those ants are trying to think about, I'm a somebody, I'm going to go out and change the world, I'm going to, be somebody in this world? No, they're just doing their job and helping the colony to survive by, transporting food and the materials that they need. So if you ever look at human beings from like an airplane and you look down, we look like a bunch of ants running around with our cars and our motorbikes and walking around, going here and there. But the mind in the unenlightened state, when it starts to understand that there is no self, that this body isn't you, this mind isn't you, it tends to still grasp and it wants to know, well, what am I? If I'm not this body and I'm not the mind, this is the mind still grasping. And ultimately, by the time you realize non-self, you can be completely comfortable and confident in this skin and realize that this isn't you, that there is a body, there is a mind, and it's come together and we call this a person. But this isn't who you are. There is no you there. That's the words of the Buddha. There is no you there. There is no I. There is no me. And it's not saying that you don't exist. There is a body. There is a mind. But it's just that you shouldn't identify and cling to this body or this mind as being who you are as a person. And that's where you can get liberated. Because if you gain weight or you shrink weight or you lose your hair or you get gray hair, you get a pimple, you get a mole, whatever, you get an amputated arm, you can maintain your peace and maintain your joy in that situation.
So when I'm going to try to do that question. So when you are living, you have to make decisions. If you want to, for example, you are here like teaching, you have to make decisions about what do you want to do or something. So in what you follow to make the decision, in what you based to make the decision.
Right. So you base your decisions in wisdom.
To live the life,
Yeah, you base your decision in wisdom, or we also refer to it as discernment. What discernment is wise decision making. So while you no longer identify with this body or this mind as being who you are, the mind still has wisdom, and you know it's wise to eat food each day, or you know that it's wise to take a shower and brush your teeth, or you know it's wise to look both directions before you cross the street, and that would be wise to cross the street after the traffic's cleared. So you base what you do in day-to-day life based on your wisdom, based on certain goals, certain objectives that you have, and then you apply wisdom to those goals and objectives.
And where come from the wisdom? The wisdom come from where?
From the mind.
The mind.
Mm-hmm. But that mind is not you. It's not who you are.
But you base your life in the decisions that make your mind. It's like, it's a paradox or something.
It comes from the mind. Uh-huh. What the unenlightened mind is going to want to think is my mind. Right? So you start to change your language and kind of disassociate with it being my mind or my body or my computer or my phone. This is what the unenlightened mind does when it clings to a self and that you think that there's something here that is you. So it's going to be very possessive in my body and my mind. Instead, you might eventually start getting to the point where you think of it as the body in the mind rather than my body in my mind. So this is a transformation that gradually occurs through training of the mind, that you start to realize that, this body is not mine. It doesn't belong to me. You're essentially renting this body. You're like a tenant. Right?
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Anything else you guys would like to ask about before we move on to the next part? Mm-hmm.
Also about the non-self part, I was
sure
just thinking if I adapt this thought to myself, I might as well also adapt this when I'm viewing other people. But would that be causing some problem? Or I kind of feel confused that if I view, for example, for this lady, then it will be like if I kind of thinking there is no her, and then it becomes more like, I don't know how would I view her anymore. Like there is a body of this lady and there is a mind of this lady, and how should I interact with the body and the mind? Or should I totally not adapting this thought towards other people, just on myself?
Yeah, as you understand that there is no self here and you don't see this body or this mind as being who you are, it does help you in relationship to other beings as well. Because oftentimes what the unenlightened mind has is there's another fetter. Remember, there's 10 fetters. One of the pollutions or taints or fetters is called conceit. This is part of the ego. This is where the mind is judging other people and putting yourself above people or below people. So when you realize non-self, when you realize that this body nor this mind is you, then you realize the same thing for other people, that this body nor this mind is that person. So what you'll find is as you're eliminating personal existence view, you're starting to dissolve part of the ego, because personal existence view in conceit is part of the ego where the mind wants to judge other people. And when you see somebody has a certain physical body, you won't judge them about that. Like right now, you may. If you see somebody that looks a certain way, you might become judgmental and looking down on them or looking up to them based on their appearance, based on their body or based on their mind. And so by you realizing non-self, it's helping you to dissolve part of your ego, which is got that judgment in there where the mind wants to judge people, putting them above or below you. And this is detrimental in your life if you allow the ego to be in the mind, where that arrogance and the boastfulness and you're putting people above and below you, it's going to hinder you from having warm and loving relationships and successful relationships in your life. So you can look at an individual as a living being, and then you have loving kindness and compassion for that living being, but you don't judge them through their appearance or what's going on in their mind.
I actually also thought about like having compassion for the others.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was thinking, yes, it's totally right that if we view other people also seeing them without themselves, and we will not judge. But then when I have compassion, like what am I having compassion for?
Sure. So what judgment is judgment is where you're looking at something and you're putting yourself above others or below others, where you're judging that you're better than other people and now you look down to them, or you're putting yourself below them and you're looking up to them. What you're looking to do is eliminate judgment. That's not going to help you in your life. What you're looking to get to is discernment, where you can make wise decisions based on understanding these natural laws. And what you're doing is having compassion for this being, this other being, where yes, this body nor this mind is who that person is, but there is a being there, right? There's a body and there is a mind, and we can have compassion for that body and that mind, for that individual, for that person. What compassion is concern for the misfortune of others. So say somebody has a arm that is amputated, or say somebody's blind, right? Okay, so this body isn't able to see or isn't able to hear or has less, one hand and one arm. So we don't need to judge that person as being better or being worse for those aspects of the body, but we can still have compassion for that individual, concern for their misfortune. And this would be based in discernment of wise decision making, that it would be wise to have compassion for them, concern for their misfortune. It would be unwise to judge them, putting ourselves above them or below them based on their body or based on what's going on in their mind.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else you guys would like to ask about these three universal truths before we move on? Okay. So now I'm going to share with you one more building block to help you guys understand before we move into the Four Noble Truths. Here, you're going to need to understand the definition of a craving, desire, attachment, an expectation, a want, holding, grasping, clinging. What this is this is the mind having a mental longing and strong eagerness, pulling towards the objects of its affection. This is like a longing, a yearning, a chasing after the objects of its affection. Thinking the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. There's something that the mind thinks, if I can just get that thing, everything in my life will be perfect. I'll be completely fulfilled. So you might chase a new pair of shoes, or jewelry, or clothes, or you might chase a boyfriend or girlfriend or something like this, thinking that this thing is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. The craving, desire, attachment isn't the object itself. It's the mind longing, yearning for it. Because you're going to need a pair of shoes. You're going to need clothes. You're going to need relationships. You might need a mobile phone or a computer. The craving, desire, attachment isn't the object. It's how the mind is longing and yearning for it. So if you've ever been in the mall and you've been walking down the mall and you saw something in the window, like a new pair of shoes, and you're like, oh, new pair of shoes. Yes, 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 yes. Oh, I need that pair of shoes so badly. Oh, I just got to get those new pair of shoes. Right? That's the longing and yearning. That's the craving, desire, attachment. Or maybe you did this with a mobile phone or a computer or some technology, or maybe a video game, or maybe a boyfriend or girlfriend. Maybe you saw somebody that was particularly handsome or beautiful or intellectually attractive to you. And you're like, oh, I just got to get that person. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Have you experienced this? Where your mind's longing and yearning, pulling towards something, thinking it's going to provide you some kind of lasting satisfaction? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah? You experienced this? Okay. Like to be sure you guys understand what this is before I move to the next piece. So this is called craving, desire, attachment. This is the longing, the yearning, the wants, the expectations, thinking something is going to provide you some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases after this thing. Okay, so now I'm going to explain to you the Four Noble Truths. This is going to explain to you the problem that you're experiencing in the unenlightened mind, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward. And you can independently verify these, as I've mentioned. You're not believing these. You're learning, reflecting, and practicing. So the first noble truth is explaining to you the problem. The problem is everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. So when you're experiencing those conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant, that's the problem. The mind is going up and down and up and down, up and down. Those are conditioned feelings. Remember, the enlightened mind is beyond that. It's experiencing unconditioned mental qualities. It's no longer experiencing the conditional feelings, because in the unenlightened state, you can only experience happiness if these conditions are met. And typically, as you get older, the list of conditions grows longer and longer and longer. And you might find yourself being less and less happy over time because your expectations and your wants are growing and growing and growing. And it's rarer and rarer that all those conditions can be met. So therefore, you might find yourself having less and less happiness because you're experiencing more and more of these expectations and these wants. That's what the second noble truth is going to explain to you. So the first noble truth is explaining the unenlightened mind is going up and down and up and down. By the time you get to enlightenment, the mind is always peaceful and always joyful. The second noble truth is explaining that discontentedness is caused by craving, desire, attachment. Because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. Okay, so I'm going to say that a few times, and I'm going to give you some examples so that you can see this for yourself. So those discontent feelings, the conditioned feelings of pleasant, painful, neither painful nor pleasant, the happiness, excitement, the sadness, the anger, the shyness, the discomfort, displeasure, it's being caused by craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection, because the mind wants things to be permanent, when in reality, everything around you is impermanent. So I'll give you an example. Say you met a brand new person that you particularly like, and this is maybe someone who's going to be a boyfriend or a girlfriend. When you guys first got together, you probably got all kinds of pleasant feelings. Wow, this person's showing me affection. They're sending me text messages. They're calling me all the time and checking in on me. We're going out to dinner. We're going out to the movies. You might be having intimate contact with this person. You're having great conversations. Oh, so much pleasant feelings. right? This is the beginning of the relationship. Based on the condition of having a boyfriend or girlfriend, you get these conditioned pleasant feelings. But then over time, as this relationship goes, the expectations, the wants start growing more and more and more. And now the relationship becomes discontent. You become frustrated and agitated. They're becoming frustrated and agitated. And now you guys separate and you end the relationship. And now you're angry, you're frustrated, you're bitter, you're sad, or whatever other discontent feelings. Maybe you're lonely or bored, right? The mind is craving. It's longing, it's yearning, it's wanting this relationship to be permanent, when in reality, this relationship is impermanent. It was always impermanent, but the unenlightened mind didn't understand that. It lacked wisdom. It didn't understand the universal truth of impermanence, that this relationship was impermanent. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, more likely than not, one of you would die first. And then you would be sad, or you'd be angry or frustrated. It's not the love that's causing these painful feelings. So even when someone dies, it's not the love that's causing the grief or the sadness. It's the mind craving for this person to be permanent. So when grandma or grandpa died, or mother or father or brothers and sisters or friends have died, if you grieved, you're not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just that your mind is attached. You're craving, you're desiring, you're wanting this person to be permanent. And when you were confronted with this impermanence, the mind didn't understand it in the unenlightened state. You didn't understand this universal truth of impermanence. And the mind was holding on to grandma or grandpa, wanting them to be permanent. And now when you faced this impermanence, you grieved and you got sad. The craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the craving for permanence is what's causing you to be sad or frustrated in every situation. If you've ever been at a wedding and you were grieving at a wedding, or people around you were grieving at a wedding, it's not the love that's causing that. It's the mind craving for this person to be permanent. Or if you've ever gone with children to drop them off at college, or maybe your parents dropped you off at college, and maybe they grieved when you were going to college, right? This is the mind craving permanence. Here's a more simple example that's not based in relationships. Say you buy a brand new car. And you buy that brand new car, you saved all your money, you're driving it around the neighborhood, people are looking at you, wow, he's so accomplished, or she's so successful, look at that brand new car, wow. You get all these pleasant feelings. Now you park your car in the front of a store, and you go inside, and you come out, and you see a scratch on the car. Maybe you get angry. Maybe you get frustrated. It's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not even the person who scratched your car that's causing that anger to arise. What's causing that anger to arise is your mind is craving permanence, wanting this car to be permanently beautiful. We're not talking about what's wise or unwise related to this scratch, because it'd be wonderful if nobody ever scratched your car. But that's not the world you live in. You live in an impermanent world. You live in a world that has the universal truth of impermanence. This car is going to get a scratch. It's only a matter of time. The tires are going to need to be changed. The window washers are going to be changed. The paint's going to fade. The upholstery in the car is going to change. If your mind's craving for this car to be permanently beautiful, when you see that scratch, you'll get angry. You'll get frustrated. You'll get irritated because the mind's craving permanence. And now with your mind all shaken up, you'll probably make unwise decisions that potentially leads to unwholesome results. If that person is around, maybe somebody gets in a fight, or they get attacked, or maybe you go in and talk with the store and you start yelling at the store and the people in the store. Because when your mind arises these painful feelings, with the lack of wisdom, you will associate those painful feelings with somebody else. You will become to the point where you either push that person away, thinking that that's going to solve the problem, because you think the problem is this person. You think this person is causing you to be angry. So you either push them away, or you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile with the people around you, or you'll put your expectations on people, trying to control people to do things your way. But the only problem with that is there's 8 billion people in the world. You can't train 8 billion people to do things your way. There's only one mind that you need to train. Do you know whose mind you need to train? There's only one mind you're capable of training. Do you know whose mind that is? Your own mind, right? If you go around and put your expectations on other people, okay, let's just say you train 50 people to do things your way. There's a whole lot more other people in the world. You can't train them to do things your way. So when there's craving, desire, attachment in the mind wants the objects of its affection. It will get pleasant feelings when it gets what you want. When you don't get what you want, you'll get painful feelings. So this is why the mind tries to put expectations on other people, because you're trying to get those pleasant feelings. The mind thinks if I can just get things done my way, then everything will be perfect. But things aren't perfect because not everyone in the world can do things your way. Right? So this second noble truth is explaining to you that when you get your cravings fulfilled, when your craving, desire, attachments is fulfilled, you'll get pleasant feelings. You'll get happy, excited, elated. But when your cravings, desires, attachments, when your wants and expectations aren't being met, you'll get painful feelings like sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, and others. Right? So as long as you allow these cravings, desires, attachments to exist in the mind, your mind's just going to keep going up and down and up and down. So now let's independently verify this, because I've given you some learning. Now, don't believe me, independently verify it for yourself. And here's how you do that. Think about a recent situation where you've been angry, where you've been frustrated, where you've been agitated. Now, that could have been this morning, it could have been yesterday, it could have been last week, right? Think about that situation. At that time, you might have been trying to blame other people. You might have been pointing the finger. That's what the unenlightened mind does. You're not a bad person. The mind just lacks wisdom. So you might have been trying to blame somebody else for your anger, your frustration. But now with this new wisdom, look at that same situation. What was it that your mind wanted that you didn't get? There might have been more than one thing. There was something your mind wanted that it didn't get. And when you didn't get it, you got angry or frustrated or irritated. If you're having trouble seeing it, raise your hand. Let me know. Because I've had people say, hold on a second, David. I went to work the other day. The house was beautiful. I came home. My wife had stuff all over the house. She was working on this craft project. The house was a wreck. I walked in and I got frustrated and angry. How did I cause my own anger? Because that's what I'm explaining to you, is your mind is causing its own anger. How did I cause my own anger? I wasn't even there. I just walked in. Well, your mind was craving for the house to look permanently beautiful in the way that you wanted it to look. In your mind, you had a certain craving, a desire that this is how the house should look, and it should look this way permanently. And when you went to work, you were expecting, you were wanting, you were craving for the house to look that way when you got home. And when you got home and it looks a different way, because it can't look that way permanently. It's not possible for the house to look that way permanently. When you came home and you saw this craft project, you got frustrated because you weren't getting your cravings fulfilled. And just like the house can't look that way permanently, when your wife had this craft project all over the house, that's not permanent either. She will put it away, and you may even help her put it away, right? So the mind craves permanence, wanting things to be permanent. It doesn't understand the universal truth of impermanence, and you may not be able to see the situation where your mind got frustrated and agitated. You might need help to be able to see that it's your cravings, desires, attachments. So if you're having trouble seeing this, you can share your example, and I will help you to be able to see how your mind is causing its own discontentedness. This is what the Buddha is teaching you. This is what we call right view. If you can establish right view, the right view is your mind is causing its own discontent feelings. Accept a responsibility, accept accountability for your feelings. As long as you keep blaming other people for your feelings, you'll never solve your problem. You'll never fix the mind, because it's not other people that are causing your mind to be discontent. If you keep thinking that other people are causing you to be discontent, you'll keep pushing people away. You'll keep being bitter and harsh and hostile to them, or you'll put your expectations on people. And in this situation, you'll have broken relationships over and over and over and over again. So if you keep experiencing broken relationships over and over and over again, this is part of the reason why, is that the mind is not understanding what the true problem is. So when you experience painful feelings, if you keep associating that with something external, some other person, you'll keep pushing them away. You'll be bitter and harsh and hostile, or put your expectations on people. And this is going to hinder you from being able to have successful relationships in the world. So by understanding the second noble truth and establishing right view, you can have this breakthrough where you understand what the real problem is. And then you can get to a real solution. That's why when you actually start understanding the teachings of the Buddha and you apply the tools and techniques that he teaches you, you'll see the results. You'll see the mind becoming more peaceful. And that's where the third noble truth comes in. Because if you understand the second noble truth, that it's your mind that's causing these discontent feelings and that it's craving, desire, attachment, this longing, this yearning, the mind chasing after the objects of its affection. And if it gets what it wants, it gets those pleasant feelings. But ultimately, those pleasant feelings are dissatisfying because they're only temporary. They arise, they change, they fade away. You end up right back in the painful feelings at some point. So ultimately, those conditioned pleasant feelings aren't even satisfying because they're only temporary. So if you can understand that your mind is causing all these feelings itself through craving, desire, attachment, the third noble truth is explaining to you the elimination of this problem of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you can eliminate craving, desire, attachment in the mind, then you can eliminate the discontent feelings. You can purify the mind of the cravings, desires, attachments, eliminate those from the mind, and then you can live peaceful and joyful. So it's not about eliminating the objects. So you're not eliminating the mobile phone, for example, or you're not eliminating the computer. You're eliminating the craving, desire, attachment, wanting it to be permanent. That's what you're eliminating. You're training the mind to no longer view these things as permanent and training the mind to let go. As long as you're holding on to them tightly, thinking that they are permanent, then when your mobile phone breaks, you'll be angry. Or when you're working on your computer and it doesn't work the way you want it to work, you will get frustrated. Or if you're driving and someone comes in front of you, if you want that lane and that lane is your lane, it belongs to you, you'll get frustrated when someone pulls in front of you, right? There's all these different things that your mind is going to go up and down based on certain experiences that you're having. But the third noble truth is explaining to you, if you can eliminate craving, desire, attachment, then you can eliminate the discontent feelings. And breathing mindfulness meditation, which we did this morning, that's one of the trainings that are training your mind to let go, to no longer chase after things. So when your mind moves off the breath and you're cutting that off and letting it go and bringing the mind back to the breath, this is restraining the mind. You're training your mind to pull back, almost like you're riding a horse and you're pulling the reins back and you're restraining the mind. Also generosity, when you're practicing generosity, where you're giving and you're sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return, this is training your mind to let go. Because a mind with craving, desire, attachment, it tends to be somewhat selfish. It tends to hold on to things very tightly, like your money, your time, your resources. You might hold on to things very tightly. Mine. But if you practice generosity, where you're giving and sharing your time, your effort, your energy, your resources, more than is strictly required in any given situation, without any expectation of anything in return, this will help you to train your mind to let go. So the breathing mindfulness meditation and the generosity is there to help you train your mind to let go. But it's really the fourth noble truth that is giving you the complete solution. The fourth noble truth is explaining to you the path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. That's what's going to help you to eliminate the craving, desire, attachment. There's 8 individual steps. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. It's called the Eightfold Path. And the very first step is called right view, because you need right view in order to build all the other steps. Right view is having the right view that your mind is causing its discontentedness, that it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing the discontentedness. Wrong view would be to blame other people. If you're blaming other people for your feelings, which you may be doing right now, that's understandable. In the unenlightened state, with a lack of wisdom, the mind will do that. With wrong view, if you keep blaming other people, you'll never get to a solution, because that's not what's causing the problem. But if you can have a breakthrough in understanding right view, that your mind is causing its own discontent feelings, that's why you need to do meditation, and you need to learn the teachings, and you need to independently verify them and practice them. Then what you do is you build out all these other steps of the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is kind of like 8 individual dials. If you had a speaker system and you had some kind of electronic equipment and you could tweak these 8 dials, and the more you tweak these 8 dials, you get a better and better sound out of the speakers. That's essentially what this Eightfold Path is, that if you tweak these 8 dials in the mind, then you get a better and better performing mind. Your mind will be more focused, concentrated, having clarity of mind and deep memory. You'll see that you won't experience discontent feelings. They will gradually diminish over time. You will see that your personal and professional relationships will improve. And you'll see that you won't even be in a bad mood anymore. You'll just always be joyful because the mind's conditions that are causing the discontent feelings have been eliminated. The condition that's causing the bad mood is the craving, desire, attachment. That's what's causing the mind to experience the bad mood, because if you get what you want, you'll be excited and you'll be happy. But if you don't get what you want, you'll be irritable and grumpy and agitated, right? So that's what the mind's doing. If you eat food and your stomach's full, maybe you'll be happy. But then when the body feels a little bit of pain in the stomach, now the mind is craving for the body to be permanently comfortable. This body can't be permanently comfortable. It's going to experience discomfort sometimes. But if you're craving the body to be permanently comfortable, when you get hungry or when this body needs food, you'll get irritable, you'll get grumpy. And you can actually train your mind to no longer do that. You can get to the point where the mind can be peaceful and joyful all the time, even when you need food, right? So right view is the foundation. And then you build all the other steps on top of that. And you're learning all of these and you're dialing it in, and you're learning with the original words of the Buddha. So whether you learn in a class or course or retreat with me, I will share with you the original words of the Buddha so you can see what he taught on each one of these topics, each one of these steps. And then I show you how to learn it, how to reflect on it, to independently verify it, and then how to practice it so that you can see the truth. So the way that you can practice these Four Noble Truths and implement them into your life is now and forever. Whenever you experience discontentedness, don't blame other people. Look inward. Try to figure out, what are your cravings? What are your desires? What are your attachments? What are your mind's longing and yearning for? If your mom calls you up and says, hey, I'm going to come see you this weekend. I would like to come see your new flat, or I'd like to come see your new house or your new car. I'm going to come visit you. If you allow the mind to get so excited, yay, mom's coming. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Yay, mom's coming. Well, then she calls you up on Friday and says, hey, sorry, I can't come. Something else has come up. Sorry, we'll have to get together another time. Now you're going to be sad. Now you're going to be frustrated because based on the condition that mom's coming, you're so excited. But now when mom's not coming, you're going to be sad. So when mom calls you and says, hey, I'm coming to see your new flat. I'm coming to see your new house, your new car, your new baby, whatever it is. You say, all right, great, mom. It'd be wonderful to see you. Come on over. We'll have some food. We'll have some great conversation. Come on over. It'd be great to spend time with you. But then when she calls on Friday and says, hey, I can't come, something else came up. Okay, I understand, mom, no worries. You do whatever you need to do. We'll catch up another time. You have fun. Be well. We'll see you next time, right? Or whatever it is. But if your mind's attached to mom, if you're craving for mom to come, you can only be happy if mom comes. And then when she doesn't come, you'll be sad and frustrated. So this is how you can train your mind slowly but surely. Because you can understand this potentially intellectually as I talk to you right now, but you'll still go outside and get agitated and annoyed about something. You can't learn something like this and instantly implement it into your life and instantly no longer get angry. It's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And you'll see that as you decide, if you decide, to gradually learn and practice these teachings. So this is the very first teaching of the Buddha, establishing right view, getting well established to understand that it's your mind that's causing these discontent feelings. So I'll just pause here. This is everything that I thought I would share with you guys. Unless you guys have questions, we can go through and I can share with you some more, but let me know if you guys have any questions. Yes, sir.
And my question is it possible that someone has eliminated the craving desire attachment, but his or her disconnection still exists?
No, it's not possible. If you've eliminated all cravings, desires, attachments, you will never experience discontentedness ever again. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll never be sad or angry, frustrated, irritated, annoyed, feeling guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, boredom, loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of that is eliminated from the mind. So you can notice, like, for example, when we were all children, we might have really had a craving for ice cream or chocolate, right? And if mom and dad gave us ice cream and chocolate, we got so excited and we got so happy. And oh, we just loved that chocolate and ice cream. But then at some point, mom and dad said, no, you can't have chocolate or ice cream. And then we got angry. We got frustrated. And we probably blamed it on our mom and our dad, right? But now, at this point, you probably don't crave chocolate and ice cream. If you have chocolate and ice cream, okay, it's fine. I enjoy chocolate and ice cream, but you're probably not craving it. You're probably not longing for it the way you once did as a kid. So you can eliminate certain cravings, desires, attachments, and no longer experience discontentedness based on those specific cravings, desires, attachments. But there might be other cravings that you have in the mind that your mind is still experiencing discontentedness about. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you will have eliminated all cravings, desires, attachments. You'll still be existing in the world. You'll still have certain things around you, but your mind will no longer experience discontentedness because you've eliminated all cravings, desires, attachments. You're now pursuing things as a goal, as an objective or interest. Where in the unenlightened state, you tend to chase and chase and chase and chase and wanting things to be a certain way. And it can only be happy if those things occur. But what you're doing through all this training is you're restraining the mind and you're bringing it to the middle where now you can pursue things as a goal, as an objective or an interest. And you can learn that if you get this thing that you're working towards, wonderful. And if you don't get that thing, that's wonderful too. You can just move on, that you're not basing your inner feelings based on whether you get this thing or not.
Yeah, want to be enlightened can be seen as a desire.
So some people do get to the point where they have a craving, desire for enlightenment, where they're chasing after it. But as long as you chase after it, you won't actually experience enlightenment. You need to bring the mind to the middle where it's a goal, it's an objective, it's an interest that you're working towards, but it's not a desire. Meaning, remember how we describe desire, that it's this longing and yearning. It's the chasing after the objects of your affection. So if you have a longing and yearning for the peace and the joy of the enlightened mind, there's a craving there, and you won't be able to get to enlightenment until you eliminate that craving. So in order to get to enlightenment, you need to be able to pursue it as a goal, as an objective or interest through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. That you're not chasing it, but you're gradually working towards it.
For sharing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're welcome. Anything else? So you guys see, things are all impermanent, right? Even the people that we've had in our class, right? People come and go in and out of our class. The same number of people that started our class, they're not going to all be here when we finish class. Some people come, some people leave. This is all impermanence. But if your mind is craving permanence, maybe if somebody leaves class, you might be upset or angry, or you might think that person's being disrespectful. No, that's not being disrespectful if somebody chooses to leave, right? They might have other things going on in their day. Maybe they were only planning to be here for an hour or 30 minutes or an hour and a half, or maybe they just came for meditation and that's all that they were here for. But if my mind as a teacher was craving for everyone to be here, or if I was craving to teach that particular topic that I was planning to teach today, I would be discontent to not teach that. Or if people got up and left because they were maybe only here for meditation and they left after 30 minutes. So you can train your mind to maintain your peacefulness and joy no matter what's happening. When all these things are changing around you, this is normal. It's completely normal. But if your mind's craving permanence, when you experience impermanence, you won't like that. So another way to say the mind craves permanence is to say the mind does not like impermanence. The unenlightened mind does not like change. So you can train your mind to understand change and that it's normal and to not crave things to be permanent. Okay? So if you guys would like to learn more about the teachings of the Buddha, we have classes here on Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturday. On Sunday and Wednesday, this is kind of like the foundational program where you can learn. Tomorrow I'm going to be teaching chapter 15 in our book, which is titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. Chapter 15 is titled True Love, Love Without Attachment. This is where you learn how to practice true love, because in the unenlightened state, craving, desire, attachment is oftentimes masquerading as love. So if you find that it's very challenging to have relationships, whether it's with your life partner, your children, your parents, your siblings, other people like this, it's because the mind doesn't understand true love and it's not practicing true love. So if you understand what true love is and you can practice true love, you'll have more fulfilling relationships. So I'm going to be teaching that tomorrow at 9 a.m. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing loving kindness meditation with students, and then opening up to any and all questions that students might have. And then that following week, January 1st through January 5th, I'm going to be teaching a course which is called Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment. This is all the foundational teachings that you need to really get onto the path to enlightenment, which includes the Eightfold Path in its entirety, but it includes a whole lot of other teachings that I'm going to be sharing that week as well. And if you're here in Chiang Mai, you can attend live at the temple, but also I live stream these classes and you can attend by Zoom as well. So you're always welcome, no matter where you are in the world, to attend classes here through coming here or through joining through the technology like Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. So thank you all for choosing to join today and deciding today is a day that you'd like to learn the teachings of the Buddha. If you would like help to learn further, let me know. I can help you through various classes and courses, retreats, through the books, through the audiobooks, through the videos, through the podcasts, and all the things that we offer. You can actually download these books for free from our website. You can take them and go print them. You can get printed versions by just reimbursing us for the printing costs. We have them here, and they're even available on Amazon as well. So if you'd like help on this path to enlightenment, I'm here to help you. I don't want anything from you. I don't expect anything from you. I'm just here to help you and guide you on the path as you choose that you would like to eliminate your discontent feelings. So thank you for coming today, and perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. We'll see you next time. Sawadee khap. Sawadee khap. Sawadee khap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.